Beyond a Number, Defining Poverty as Freedom to Choose and Contribute to Society by Elliott, Marron, and Sarah Hayne. So what is poverty? There are many different ways that people define poverty. Some consider it to be simply economic or income deprivation, to be measured using something absolute such as a poverty threshold that is not sensitive to what others in a given society have. A poverty threshold refers to an amount of income set by the government, and if a family unit earns less than that amount, they are considered poor. Others see it as a more complex issue that is relative to a society's existing level of economic, social, and cultural development, involving social exclusion and a person's actual freedom to live well and be well. These relative measures are relative because they are sensitive to what other people have in that society.
We believe that poverty is the deprivation of fundamental capabilities which allow for freedom to participate in society. Capabilities are various alternative combinations of beings and doings which a person can choose. In other words, capability is freedom to choose from a variety of functionings, things like food, activities, and clothing. For example, the lack of food capabilities would mean that a family can only afford to eat ramen and don't have the freedom to eat at restaurants because they do not have the capability to afford that freedom. We would consider someone to be poor if they do not have the freedom to participate in society due to a lack of financial means.
The fundamental capabilities in our definition of poverty refer to what Martha C. Nussbaum termed central capabilities. These 10 central capabilities include life, referring to being able to live the entire length of a normal human lifespan, and bodily health. Bodily integrity refers to the ability to move freely and be protected from assault. For example, children living in a household with domestic violence would not be considered to have the capability of bodily integrity. Senses, imagination, and thought is also a big central capability. This mainly stems from a good education. An example of having this central capability and putting it to use would be someone who uses their imagination and thought to create a successful blog about their religious journey. The capability of emotions includes the ability to love, be attached to others, and to be sad. An example of a lack of this capability would be someone who is greatly depressed and anxious because of the lack of development as a child due to parents who were absent and cruel. Practical reason refers to the ability to create a concept of good and evil, whether that be through religion or another source. Affiliation is social interaction and the ability to show concern and respect towards others. For example, using this capability could look like being able to be a good friend to your classmates. Other species, or the capability to interact with other animals and the planet in a healthy way, is another central capability. The last two central capabilities are play, being able to participate in activities like sports or other things people may find fun and make them laugh, and control over one's environment, whether political or material.
These capabilities equip people to fully participate in society however they may like. As you can tell, our definition of poverty goes beyond a dollar threshold or the basic necessities to survive. Although some of these capabilities cannot necessarily be purchased with money, the amount of income still has an effect on whether one has these capabilities or not. As said by Amartya Sen, resources are important for freedom and income is crucial in avoiding poverty.
Having an accurate method for measuring poverty is important for different reasons. Mainly, it is important in order to determine eligibility for government aid, to track progress in order to make useful policy decisions and see the effectiveness of government policies, and to also see how different countries are doing in respect to one another.
The U.S. government currently measures poverty using the Official Poverty Measure, or the OPM. The OPM is an absolute measure of poverty, meaning it does not consider what other people have in a society when determining who is poor. The OPM sets a poverty threshold, or the amount of income that determines if someone is in poverty, at 3 times the economy food plan, which according to Iceland is the lowest cost food plan prepared and priced by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The income thresholds vary based on family size. A family's income is calculated by adding wages, assets, Social Security, and any other money in their bank account. Advantages to the OPM is that we can easily measure it and see progress because it has been used for many years. Although, this measure only depends on family size and income level, which brings about many disadvantages. First of all, the OPM does not include government in-kind benefits that affect income levels, such as food stamps when calculating families' income. They also do not change the OPM based on standards of living, making the thresholds outdated, or adjust for cost differences based on geographical regions. Finally, the OPM does not take into account money required to hold a job, for example, transportation cost. For these reasons, we do not believe the OPM should be used to measure poverty. Because of these disadvantages and the inability of the OPM to measure capabilities in any way, we suggest focusing on the SPM, the Supplemental Poverty Measure. According to Short, the SPM sets a threshold based on expenditures on food, clothing, shelter, and utilities, or FCSU, with an additional amount to allow for other needs such as work-related transportation. The SPM takes 1/3 of the median amount spent on FCSU based on data collected and adds an additional 0.2% to calculate the threshold, and varies thresholds based on the household instead of the family unit, like the OPM. One of the primary benefits of the SPM is its capacity to change thresholds based on geographical location because of housing cost differences. The acknowledgement of in-kind benefits is another valuable component of the SPM. In-kind benefits such as SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, are necessary for many people to fulfill their job requirements, yet not taken into account by the OPM.
We believe poverty should be measured using the SPM along with additional categories that will attempt to measure the 10 central capabilities.
The 10 central capabilities are difficult to measure because whether or not someone has the capabilities of imagination or emotions cannot be put into a numerical value. Therefore, because the 10 capabilities cannot be measured with arithmetical or logistical data, they must be converted into a proxy. A proxy is something that is put in place of something that is immeasurable. In order to do so, we believe that poverty should be measured with a system similar to the Human Development Index, along with the SPM. The HDI allows for an evaluation of the central capabilities by measuring life expectancy, projected years of education, and gross national income. Life expectancy works as a proxy to measure the capabilities of health, life, and bodily integrity. The projected years of education measured is related to and allows us to measure the capabilities of imagination, practical reason, affiliation, and emotions. Although schooling does not directly teach these things, going to school promotes development along with these capabilities. Gross national income can also serve as a proxy for play and control over one's environment. With a higher income, people are more likely to have room in their lives to participate in leisurely activities and have the money and free time to have fun. With a higher income, one can also have more control over what they buy, where they live, and other aspects of their environment. Although as of now, the HDI is used to compare between countries as a whole, we suggest incorporating parts of the HDI into the SPM in order to measure specifically poverty in the United States based on the capabilities approach and not just basic needs.
Our suggested approach to defining and measuring poverty is quasi-relative, meaning we believe that the definition of poverty depends partially on what others in a society have, but should not be completely relative because it will underestimate or overestimate who is poor. A fully relative measure also means that poverty will never be alleviated. Therefore, implementing a form of the SPM that incorporates the HDI rather than the OPM allows for a quasi-relative interpretation. Some factors of the SPM that are beneficial to our explanation of poverty that the OPM lacks are geographical factors being considered and the inclusion of all lifestyles, regardless of marital or familial relation. If we were to restrict the evaluation of poverty to a rigid form of data collection that never alters with society, then the inaccuracies would be plentiful. Using a semi-relative approach achieves the ability to view poverty based on other people within a specified culture or community. The SPN makes up for issues in the OPM, but because it is based on basic needs, it does not measure capabilities. We suggest extending the SPM to also measuring capabilities by mixing aspects of the HDI into the SPM. By doing this, poverty as defined as lacking the freedom to participate in society will be most accurately measured.